Time's up. An amnesty expires for illegal migrant workers in Saudi Arabia. They now risk fines or even jail. But what's being done to improve the system that created the problem? And can the kingdom reduce its reliance on foreign labour? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Hazem Sika. They represent about 1/3 of Saudi Arabia's 27 million people, but thousands of expatriates have been rushing to leave as an amnesty for illegal workers expires. The amnesty was announced on April the 3rd. Anyone in the country illegally was offered the chance to get their papers in order without being penalised. And because of the sheer numbers involved, the July 4th deadline was extended to November. About 1 million workers are now said to have left the country, and roughly 4 million are reported to have found employers to sponsor them. Saudi Arabia is the Arab world's largest economy, but the employment rate among nationals stands at 12.5%, a number that the government is trying to bring down. But should Saudi Arabia be looking at a broader overhaul of its labour laws? Well, let's bring in our guests now to talk more about that. In Jeddah, we have Khaled al-Maeena, editor-in-chief of the Saudi Gazette. From Geneva, we have Azfar Khan, senior migration specialist at the International Labour Organization. And joining us on the phone is Hussein Shobokshi, a Saudi columnist and host of the Takreer current affairs programme, who's currently travelling in Prague. Good to have you all with us now. Azfar Khan, if I could start with you. Is this the right way to go about dealing with the labour issue in a country like Saudi Arabia?
Well, look, the ILO's position on this is very clear. We believe that every country has a sovereign right to make its own migration policy. The Saudis, actually, to be very fair, have abided by what the ILO has suggested in terms of guidelines and principles to consider when designing migration policies. They provided a certain period of amnesty and a period where the irregular workers could sort of regularize themselves, and that period is now over. They extended it twice, and the period is now over, and I think they're well within their rights to expel workers if they so wish to do so. However, what we also feel is that when, even though the period is over, that when they repatriate these workers, that due care is taken that these workers are not abused, they're not penalized, they're not put in detention centers or like that, but their rights are respected, even though they may be irregular.
Well, this is where it becomes problematic, isn't it? Is what's going to happen to some of these workers once that deadline passes and they don't have the correct papers. Khaled al-Maeena, what do you make of this policy in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think it's within the jurisdiction of this country to see to it that everybody who's here is staying in a legal fashion. I'm just a bit worried about the after effects of the deadline, whether how are they, as our previous speaker said, in what way will they be repatriated? Will they be taken to detention centers? They'll go straight away, because the procedure is very cumbersome. I think this is a problem that has been festering for years. 6 months, okay, but still there are I just got a call from someone, there are thousands of cases still pending with the passport department, whether these people are outside the loop of the amnesty or because their documents are with the government department. So it remains to be seen. There's a lot of apprehension among the expatriate community here on what is going to be done tomorrow.
Hussein Shobokshi, what's your take on this? Is the apprehension among foreign workers there about what will happen after this deadline justified?
I think what Mr. Maeena said is right on the button, because this is a new territory. We haven't been into this area before, and so somehow it's a novelty. Yes, an amnesty period has been extended twice. It was needed. There is conflicting explanations of how will the execution take place. Is it through the Ministry of Labour? Is it through the Immigration Department? We will see how it develops. And I think the first few days are going to dictate the mood of the Saudis as well as the foreigners in the country, because at the end of the day, the business community is looking carefully at what these steps will be like to determine the stability of the labor force that they have.
But if you have a situation where a worker, Hussein Shobokshi, has tried over the last few months to get their papers in order and hasn't been able to, for whatever reason, through no fault of his own, because of his employer or whatever it happens to be, and then that deadline passes, they face serious penalties because of this. They can be fined, they can be thrown in jail. I mean, is this the wisest system? Is this the fairest system?
Again, at the risk of sounding repetitive, this is a new territory. What I have understood is if the worker did manage to get a number to follow his case and he has not finalized his case, he would still qualify. But again, this is unproven territory. We will see if the amnesty is extended in a non-verbal term, i.e. if the worker has proven that he wants to fix the situation, he's brought in somebody to testify that he has submitted the papers, but there was a bureaucracy or routine breakdown in the system, maybe they will extend it.
All right.
We really don't know. It's a guessing game at the moment.
All right. Well, I want to turn then back to Azfar Khan and talk about this in more general terms. What are conditions generally like for many of these workers, not just in Saudi Arabia, but in other countries in the Gulf?
Well, I mean, to be very fair, I mean, the conditions are far from ideal. The problem, that we face in these countries is that, and we've been saying this over and over again, is that you have two conflicting systems. You have the labor law, which has been put in place to bring about some kind of a balance in terms of rights and obligations between the employer and the employee, which is contradicted by the existence of the sponsorship system, the kafala, which actually contradicts the articles of the labor law. And the labor law, if you look at it in many of these countries, is quite good. I mean, I wouldn't even say it's adequate, it's quite good. But the problem is that one doesn't really know that whether it's the kafala that is being employed or whether it's the labor law. And looking at the experiences that we've had over the past few days, I would say that, that the kafala is given more credence than the labor law. And that is really the problem.
All right, glad you brought that up, because we're going to talk more about what's behind those labour conditions and the kafala system that you talked about there. Human Rights Watch has criticised this system of sponsorship in Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries, which ties migrant workers to local sponsors, as you say there. Joe Stork, Deputy Director of the Middle East's of the group's Middle East and North Africa division, said in July, Saudi Arabia should get serious about regularising the status of its workers and do away with an abusive labour system that forces migrants into illegal employment. Migrant workers trapped in miserable job conditions or fleeing abusive situations should be able to change jobs without employer permission or government delay. Khaled, al-Maeena, this is part of the problem, isn't it? Is the way this kafala system operates, and the fact that workers are essentially at the mercy of their employers.
Well, it's not only Human Rights Watch. Writers and businessmen here also believe that this sponsorship or kafala system is totally outdated. It's a very antiquated law. It has to be redone. While the labor laws are fair and on paper are good, there is a labor ministry and a labor minister trying to do something. But at the same time, this law is an obstacle. You are right, it's difficult to move from one place to another. And if the worker, whether he's a white-collar worker or a blue-collar worker, falls with the wrong kafil, and this happens many times, and the media is focusing on this openly, then that person is really in trouble. And I hope that the authorities in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf will see to it that they will remove this system and come up with a system like elsewhere, and try to see to it that all these people who come, who have been invited by us for the development of our country and our region, should be given fair and proper treatment.
Hussein Shobokshi, this also prompts the question of what recourse do employers have to go if they are being mistreated because of this kafala system? Is there somewhere else that they can go? I mean, is there a government agency that they can go who will listen to their grievances? Because many of the workers that we have spoken to say there isn't, and that's part of the problem.
The whole labor environment in Saudi Arabia is being re-engineered and restructured. It is clear that the kafala system is on its way out. It's an ancient, overdone with system that needs to be replaced. The introduction of the well-regarded, well-respected new labor laws will require labor courts, labor-related judgments, which I think will be enforced very soon because there is a demand for that. Saudi Arabia, if it has to change its labor environment, it has to take the whole package together. And I think there is a realization of that. There are very important suggestions being put on the table by some lawyers and members of the Shura Council regarding this matter. And I think with the new amnesty that has expired now, these suggestions will be necessary in order to give credibility to the new situation.
All right, now I don't want to take this out of context, but videos of migrant workers being beaten do surface every now and then, and they inevitably cast the country involved in a poor light. One published just last week is said to show a Saudi man beating a worker who he accused of talking to his wife, and a warning, because we're going to show that video right now, a warning some viewers may find these pictures upsetting. All right, now we cannot verify the authenticity of this video, but the Saudi government-backed Human Rights Commission has launched an investigation into this. So we're pointing up that video because you do see videos like this cropping up from time to time, and you certainly hoped that this is an extreme case and it is the exception rather than the rule. But when you have this kafala system in operation, Khaled al-Maeena, is it not surprising that this kind of abuse is inevitable, that this sort of thing is going to happen, and this is at the heart of it, and who is ultimately responsible for this?
Well, I agree with you. The kafala system is responsible for a lot of ills going on, and as Mr. Shobokshi said, it's going to be on its way out. What you have seen on the video has already been circulated here across Saudi Arabia, and the majority of Saudis were totally against such type of behavior. But there are people in our society who have misused the kafala system, who have not allowed people to go to other jobs even when they did not want them. So I think part of the problem, or the root cause of all what you see, is the kafala system, which has, as I said, not been changed for a long time. But there have been workers who have been mistreated. You are right, there's no recourse where to go, the language problems, no avenue to legal aid and all. But I think with these new labor laws, with the lawyers, as Mr. Shobokshi said, and other people, I think Saudi society has realized that these expatriates who have come here have in many ways contributed to the development of this country. And we have to admit that without their help, of course, we had the capital, but it's without the help, many projects would never have seen the light of day. But I think once the labor laws are put in place, and more importantly, once they're implemented without any due favor to anyone, to the sponsor or to the worker, this is what I think we'll be in the right.
This is what it comes down to, though, isn't it, Khaled al-Maeena, is the implementation. I mean, there are lots of laws that exist on paper, and they all look great, but the problem is actually getting them to be implemented, getting the employers to adhere to them, or whoever is responsible for this.
Yes, I agree with you. And here, the media and society should stand up. The NGOs should stand up. The human rights organization of Saudi Arabia, which in many ways is vibrant in certain issues, should come out openly and without fear, highlight this. In the case of this man, I tweeted myself that if guilty, he should be taken to task and punished, and people should know about it. No one should be beaten in Saudi Arabia, not in this land of the Haramain, where the custodian of the two holy mosques himself has said that we are here as a peaceful country. But unfortunately, as I said, the kafala system, allows a lot of people to get away because many of these people don't even report the mistreatment for fear of being deported. But the media has already started focusing in the last few years. Writers like Mr. Shobokshi himself and others have highlighted the plight of workers. And I think society has come to realize, because these things were hidden before. It's a new media, it's a vibrant media.
Sorry, just want to get Azfar Khan's view on this. I mean, who is ultimately responsible for this kind of abuse, do you think? Is it down to the government in that country? Is it the employers, the contractors, or is it even the countries that have sent these workers over there?
Right. Let me just say one thing, that I couldn't agree more with Khaled al-Maeena with what he has just said, because the point is, look, let's go beyond the specific incidences. Now, these incidences may invite a certain moral outrage, and they should, but the question is, what actually causes this? I mean, why is that employer allowed to treat the worker as such? And then we come down essentially to the kafala. Right? And what we really need to sort out the problem is a proper institutional structure to be put in place. And that, of course, is the responsibility of the authorities. That an institutional structure is there which ensures that the laws are implemented. Now, these laws may not be implemented because of certain weaknesses within the system, such as a poor inspection system, such as a poor labor administration process. But this is where, as member states of the ILO, they can request us for assistance in helping us develop and solidifying these kind of structures.
Hussein Shobokshi, we talked earlier there about the fact that there are laws on the books that in theory are supposed to protect workers, but the problem is that they are simply not adhered to. Why is that, and why isn't more being done about it?
That is a very important question. I think with these changes now, and with an important Minister of Labor in position, you can see the signs that there is a will, there is a governmental will, there is a public will to change and improve the climate. There have been enough ugly, embarrassing incidents that are pushing the issue from a humanitarian point of view, from a business point of view, from a cultural point of view, to do something about it. I believe the uglier, saddest days of the Saudi labor issues are behind us, and we need to open a new page. There has been a good effort from NGOs, from the media, and from the Ministry of Labor and the government of late to improve and talk the talk. Now it's time to walk the walk, and I think we are beginning to do that.
Well, migrant workers are used as cheap labor and as domestic workers in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf. They're mainly from Asia, from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, and Nepal, Indonesia and the Philippines, but also from countries like Yemen, Egypt and Lebanon and Ethiopia. These countries rely heavily on remittances sent home by their nationals. But some workers blame their own governments for not doing enough to help them. Indonesian workers rioted outside their consulate in the Saudi city of Jeddah back in June, frustration spilling over there as they tried to get travel and immigration documents checked. So, I mean, we're just highlighting there the many of the countries where these workers come from, and it gets into the question, Azfar Khan, over whether the countries that are sending them bear some responsibility for this, because we hear these stories of employment agencies sending these workers over to places like Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries on false pretenses, promising them salaries that they don't end up getting. And shouldn't shouldn't the onus be on them as well to clamp down on this?
Absolutely. I think but there is not much effort that's being made on the countries of origin, in the countries of origin. Look, I mean, these workers are essentially migrating because there are not enough employment opportunities in their own countries. There are not enough income generating opportunities in their own countries so that they can acquire this income and look after the welfare of their families and their households. There is a development failure in these countries, and that's the basic reason why these people are moving out. Now, when they move out, I think at least the countries should take some kind of a responsibility, because we know we've seen these situations where these workers are treated very badly and they're cheated in their own countries by their own people. And that is also because the processes are very informalized, and the way that the recruitment takes place allows people to make money off these people. So at least the countries should be able to regulate how the recruitment process takes place in the countries from where these workers come from. I think that is a responsibility that they have to take on.
Hussein Shobokshi, if I could come back to you, I mean, this unfortunately isn't the first time that we've dealt with this issue of workers being exploited in Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia and other countries, and often we've heard promises from the governments there that more will be done to improve this, and some reforms have been made, but have they largely been cosmetic? And what is there to stop us from talking about these very same issues again a year from now or a couple of years from now?
The proof is going to be in the pudding. I think right now, with the signing of Saudi Arabia into many organizations and treaties, plus the spotlight that it is under, and I think it has raised the bar by itself, by improving the laws, by being more transparent, by allowing NGOs to be involved in disputes. There is no going back. I do think now the next phase of correcting the labor laws and emphasizing on the penalties and the execution of these laws. Plus, I think the makeup of the Saudi employment force is going to change. We're going to be seeing more Saudi men and women in the force more than before. There will be gradual more dependency on the local workforce. However, Saudi economy will still require international third world labor force. This situation is not going to change for the next 10 years.
All right, let's put that to
implemented.
Let's put that to Khaled al-Maeena. What effect is this going to have on the labor force in Saudi Arabia? We mentioned at the top there about the unemployment rate being 12%. Obviously, the exodus of so many of these foreign workers is going to have some sort of an impact on the Saudi economy. Is it going to be a positive in the long term? I mean, is it going to force more Saudis to get into the labor force?
Well, I think there will be an increase in self-reliance as far as the local people are concerned, yes. I think Saudis should also take to jobs that they think are menial, they are not, like truck driving and others, which people all across the world do, technical jobs, mechanical jobs, these kind of things, yes. But by and large, many of these workers, and we shouldn't get overjoyed, are mainly unskilled workers, like drivers, like people who work in farms and these other places. So I think while there will be an effect, and as Hussein said, there will be an increase in the number of Saudis, the mindset of the young Saudis should also change, that they should be ready to take upon jobs that they would not take before. This will help in that way, and I think they should be taught the dignity of labor right from school. So it is school education, society, parental counseling, and of course the labor ministry and all will try to sort of create the Saudi workforce that will be a product that will increase the productivity of this country for the future.
All right, and on that note, we have got to leave it. I want to thank all three of our guests, Khaled al-Maeena and Azfar Khan, and joining us on the line from Prague, Hussein Shobokshi. Thanks very much to all of you. That's it. Don't forget, you can find this show and many more at aljazeera.com. Just follow the links for shows and Inside Story. And if you're on Twitter, you can reach me on @Hazem Sika. That's it. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.